us at the very first Sphinx Spark Tank. We are really excited to welcome these 5 speakers to join us today. What we've asked is that they each present regarding their organization or a project that they're working on, the highs, the lows, what they're doing, what's working. And we'll have each of them go one at a time, and then following the final presentation, we'll invite the speakers to come out into the audience. And we encourage you to approach the speakers that you'd like to learn more about their projects, if you'd like to become involved, if you have ideas for that project. This is really to start a conversation, to find engagement with new ideas and new projects, and to find things that are going on and maybe in the community that you don't know about. So we will hand it over to Joe to start off with.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Conyers. If you want to read about me, I'm in the program book, so I'm just going to dive into about Project 440. I'm excited to talk about Project 440 today. So in 2010, I was in a television commercial, and this commercial was by Mutual of Omaha, and it was about my aha moment. And my aha moment was me being in the South, in southern Georgia, with my parents. We were in a really impoverished part of the state, and there were these 2 kids playing on a porch. And my mom said, among one of those kids could be a genius, an Einstein, a Mozart, a Yo-Yo Ma, and no one would ever know. And that kind of terrified me, because I reflect on myself and said, I've been given a lot of opportunities, and why can't these young people have the same opportunities I had? But also excited me, because then I was like, well, if I could provide opportunities for these kids, then they can actually hopefully reach their full potential. So it was that realization that my love of music was not limited to the power of just Beethoven, Bach, and Brahms, but to the power they have to change lives. And that was my inspiration for Project 440. So what is Project 440? Project 440 is a music organization that does not teach music. I'll say that again. Project 440 is a music organization that does not teach music. So how does that work? Well, on the outside, we might look to be a music program, but on the inside, we are a creative youth development program that uses music as a tool to teach entrepreneurship, leadership, and service. So what does that look like? We have 2 flagship programs. First is called Doing Good, and Doing Good is a social entrepreneurship training program where students explore the ways that making music, advocacy, creative community engagement can all interface with local challenges in their community. We have a text for this course, and the name of that text is Doing Good, Entrepreneurial Musicians Making a Difference. And that text is written by a guy named Mark Rabideau, who's the director of the 21st Century Music Initiative of DePaul University. He's written a collegiate piece, and we commissioned him to write a course in entrepreneurship for high school students. With that, we have developed a 30-week curriculum presented by our own Susanna Lowy, who's director of programs, and Michael Bryan, who's a youth trauma specialist and a member of our Project 440 board. It's over 2 semesters. In those 2 semesters, first 15 weeks are ideation, and the second 15 weeks are implementation of community service and social entrepreneurial projects. Program 2 is called Instruments for Success. It is a college and career readiness course that exposes young musicians to a varied collection of music-based opportunities and pipelines, to the collegiate and professional level across a number of genres and sectors. The text for that course is called Instruments for Success, and it's written by a guy named Jeremy Reynolds, who's actually the critic for the Pittsburgh Gazette, and a former clarinetist of Oberlin Conservatory. So in Instruments for Success, we discuss things like financial aid, scholarships, essay writing, how to find the right school or teacher, auditions, all things that any young musician would need to know. It too is an after-school program, and it's once per week, and it's provided over 10 weeks. 7 of those weeks are college prep, and the other 3 are a speaker series where we invite speakers to come and speak about their experiences as musicians. And just this past year, in our inaugural year, we've had Elena Uriosti and Melissa White, 2 first prize winners of the Sphinx competition, but also the geniuses behind Intermission Sessions and Retreat, which is a yoga retreat that mashes yoga and musicianship. Of which I participated. Diane Monroe, jazz violinist and Curtis Institute of Music graduate, and Drew Ford, also known as that viola kid from Instagram. and an alumni of the Talent Development Program, which you will hear about shortly. So in summary, our programs prepare students for the real challenges of life, as well as competitiveness in the workforce using music as the tool. Our program teaches real-life skills needed to be successful in any career on or off a stage. So what type of musician do we serve? We serve all young musicians regardless of genre. All we ask is for excellence in their artistry. We advocate for lessons. We advocate that students learn all technical aspects of their craft. Through that process, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here, they learn to reap the benefits of creating something from nothing, working hard to achieve a goal, and the process of challenging themselves to meet unexpected potential. We include everyone because we firmly believe that it's the whole of our collective experiences that make the art form flourish. It's why this little boy from Savannah, Georgia, that would be me, who grew up singing a mean alto in the gospel choir at my church, can now share his musical testimony just as confidently on stage with the Philadelphia Orchestra. We must cast the net. I'm a firm believer in casting the net, getting as many kids interested in music as possible. I did not find music, music found me. So why cast such a large musical net? Well, we've realized in our work that not all young people who play music, even at a really high level, will become professional musicians, or even want to, and that's okay. Therefore, the further we cast that net, the more likely we'll find the students with all those elements needed for success: gumption, grit, determination, and maybe a small dose of obsessive compulsiveness. With the resources and networks of many in this room, those shining stars can find a pathway to continue music as a career. And because of their work with Project 440, they'll join their musical workforce willing and able to serve the communities in a number of ways. With this wider audience of inclusion and participation, we'll be able to more aggressively tackle the problems of diversity in all sectors of our industry. So Project 440 partners have included the New York State Summer School of the Arts, Carnegie Hall's NYO and NYO2 programs, Atlanta Symphony's Youth Orchestra and Talent Development Program, Cincinnati Youth Symphony, the School District of Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia International Music Festival. With the development of our new curriculum, we are transitioning from a seminar and workshop model to more of a residency and retreat program as complementary to our more intense programming. We're also imagining what our curriculum could look like in the classroom on a regular basis and hope to partner with local high schools in making that happen. What we developed at Project 40 is not a one-size-fits-all program, but a curriculum specifically designed to serve the development needs of young people. These young people are emerging adults entering a complex and shifting workforce that values the skills we know are developed through arts and culture. Our goal is to help them reach their fullest potential. So how can you be involved? I know you're all wondering that. I can answer that. I'll answer that with a quick story. I recently had a student from my own youth orchestra tell me that he was curious as to why I would sacrifice my free time to work with the kids of the school district. He noted I'm a member of the Philadelphia Orchestra, I play chamber music, I have a studio at Temple University, I run a nonprofit organization. But the only conclusion he could come to was that the reason I'm involved is because I must actually care. That hit me. Not only because I thought the gesture was sweet, but because the lack of engagement from our industry as a whole is perceived by our young people, particularly those of color, that we just don't care. So please come care with us. We are excited to, in this inaugural year, announce all these new programs. We're beta testing everything and all of our new materials. Assessment is being done by the Fels Institute of the University of Pennsylvania. Assessment tools and data analysis of our material are being analyzed in all facets of our work. A teacher's guide will be developed to help with implementation of curriculum. And we hope all of this is completed, fingers crossed, by the end of the summer into the beginning of fall of 2018. Project 440 is developing a learning collaborative, an incubation network that will include folks like you who will get early access to our new materials and give feedback during our beta testing. We would love to connect with organizations interested in joining us in identifying music and its social relevance as part of a 21st century education. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me here. All my adult life, I've been a musician. For me, music was not just a career, it was my life. But for 35 years, although it occurred to me that I was actually one of a very tiny minority of black musicians working within the classical music industry, there was never an outlet for me to describe the feeling, and I never felt encouraged to speak about it. Luckily, I'm quite good at what I do. I'm a survivor, and I'm extremely resourceful. And as far as I was concerned, I was very happily doing my job, the work I loved, playing and performing music. Several events would conspire to change my mind and make me realize the extent and gravity of the lack of diversity in my field. And so I decided to form a fully professional orchestra made up of a majority of black and minority ethnic musicians, which I'll call BME musicians. Slide 2. The orchestra would stand on its own merits. It would be artistically excellent. It would be able to stand side by side and go toe to toe with any other orchestra. Crucially, there would also be a junior orchestra, mentored by players from the professional orchestra, with these players acting as natural role models for the younger musicians. Thus, we would grow the profile of existing BME classical musicians in the UK and develop the next generation of musicians at the same time. As inspiration, I drew on the aims and ideals of the Sphinx organization. Our launch concert at the Queen Elizabeth Hall in September 2015 was a moment I will never forget. The crowd rising to applaud as we walked on the stage. It was a wonderful, inspiring night, but this was very much a project which ran on hope, belief, and goodwill. We had no guarantees at that time that it would go anywhere, that the orchestra would even have another concert. And for a while, it was touch and go. But thankfully, the concept had an immediate effect on so many people. And over the past 2 years, we have grown exponentially. From one concert per year in 2015 and 2016 to over a dozen last year in 2017, and with a similarly exciting 2018 and future ahead of us. The key to this growth was audience engagement. Chineke concerts draw in so many people who have never attended a classical music concert in their lives, from communities that other organizations tend to write off as being too hard to reach. We finally discovered why they were hard to reach. It was because they were not being invited or made to feel welcome or even wanted. Even worse, existing outreach programs to these communities were frequently patronizing and condescending. By showing BME communities that they belong on the concert platform every bit as much as anyone else, Chineke has been able to harness a previously untapped enthusiasm for classical music among non-standard concertgoers. For example, when we visited the Symphony Hall Birmingham last September, I despaired when the staff at the hall informed us that ticket sales were very low and that the usual audience, their core supporters who attended virtually every single concert they put on, had elected to stay away on the night that we were performing there. So imagine my surprise when we walked onto the stage and we were greeted by a wonderful, diverse crowd, one which was properly reflective of the cultural and ethnic mix of the city. I've played at the Symphony Hall in Birmingham, the hall that Simon Rattle had built. I've played there many times in my career, and I've never seen a person of colour in the audience. So it was an amazing feeling to walk onto that stage and see the place packed with people who've never been there before. It didn't matter that the usual audience had chosen not to come. We had appealed to an entirely new demographic, and they turned up in force to hear us. Something similar happened last year when we became the youngest orchestra ever to debut at the BBC Proms. We were less than 2 years old, and we got this concert at the BBC Proms. The original remit of the Proms was to bring classical music to the masses, and they pride themselves on attracting a slightly different kind of audience to their concerts. But the audience that Chineke got was entirely different again. And despite the fact that we were playing in a late night slot, the hall was packed. The Royal Albert Hall was packed. However, it was the subsequent response to the concert which really blew me away. It was filmed for broadcast on BBC TV, and the highlights of that broadcast went viral on social media, being viewed millions of times and shared by tens of thousands of people. These are audiences who otherwise don't engage with classical music, who think that it's stuffy and elitist, and not for people like them. Chineke is showing them otherwise, and it's already having an effect at the grassroots level. The biggest classical music competition in the United Kingdom has traditionally been the BBC Young Musician of the Year. The category finals and overall finals of the competition are broadcast on national television, and the finalists and winners generally go on to become international soloists or get jobs with some of the best orchestras and ensembles in the country and abroad. Typically, its intake is very white and very middle class. However, in 2016, Sheku Kane-Mason, the virtuosic young black cellist who attended a state school, I think you call it public school, an ordinary state school in England, who has been involved in both the Chineke Juniors and the Chineke Professional Orchestra since day one. He went on to win that competition in 2016. Next image. Oh. That's the one. Yeah. He was the first black musician to win in the 38-year history of the competition. Obviously, Sheku is a fantastic musician in his own right, who was playing long before Chineke became a reality. And one of the things that he's one of 7 children. And one of the things that his parents said to me when we were putting together the Chineke organization was that, yes, they've got talented children and they go to the Junior Royal Academy of Music, but they feel as though they're in a vacuum. And now that there's Chineke, the children feel that they've got a focus. And literally within the first year of Chineke, the juniors won no fewer than 8 gold medals, with Sheku winning the main prize of BBC Young Musician. So Chineke, it seems the work has, it's not that the musicians are not there, it's just that they just needed a focus and a direction and to know that they can go forward. The floodgates have now opened. And this year, because the competition happens every 2 years, this year, no fewer than 3 of the Chineke juniors are in the category finals. A number of our junior musicians have also gained places at prestigious conservatoires and music colleges, several of them winning full scholarships. This is exactly what we want to do, to engage BME communities in classical music and encourage them to become involved and create a pipeline for young BME people to study music and become professional orchestral musicians and soloists, of course. Our challenges have always been ones of belief and funding. Some of the key stakeholders in the UK classical music industry have been cautious about supporting Chineke or giving us a platform to prove ourselves. I'm happy to say that we're slowly changing their minds, but unfortunately, because of the arts funding situation in the UK, we are facing a challenge we are facing a challenging few years. Fundraising, including connecting and working with corporate entities who share our vision of a diverse workforce, is something we can always use help with. The other main thing that we need help with is exposure. The BBC Proms proved to me that if we can reach out to people who don't normally attend classical music concerts and show them that they are welcome and involve them in our work, then the sky is the limit.
Adrian, I believe it's you.
So one of the things that I'm learning just from being here is that I am starting to see the interconnections between the work that's being done. So when I hear that a TDP alum has been part of a seminar that you have done, and I also know that the cellist that you're talking about, the Atlanta Symphony has hired him to play during the 18-19 season. So there are just so many overlaps, and this is a community where everybody can benefit from the efforts that everybody else is doing. So our part of the puzzle is that we work with young students, 5th grade through 12th grade, and what we're trying to do is to put them in a position to get the kind of training they need that allows them to go to the conservatories to get the rest of the training that they will need to be able to start careers.
24 years ago, Azira G. Hill and a group of Atlanta community leaders set out to find a way to attract more talented young musicians of color into classical music careers.
Since its inception, the TDP has served talented young musicians and the entire field of classical music by providing the highest level of musical training to African American and Latino or Latina students.
Nearly 100 students have graduated from the program and gone on to attend top music schools around the country.
This strong educational foundation has led to many careers in orchestras, teaching, and performance.
Each year, 25 fellows ranging from grades 5 through 12 receive intensive instruction and mentoring from Atlanta Symphony Orchestra musicians.
We receive private lessons from ASL musicians. We also receive tickets to the classical music concerts. We also have our own technical juries in the late winter and late spring.
The Talent Development Program is an opportunity for students like me to have opportunities that they may not have had otherwise.
It's really been a big help towards my musical career.
It's given me a clear focus and opportunities that not only make me a better player, but a better and more focused person.
TDP has just given me a chance to chase my dreams and do what I love every day.
It's a really great program going into the world as a musician.
So the last picture that you saw of the 6 players on the stage, those are the seniors that are graduating this year. We have 3 tubas, a trombone, a cellist, and a clarinet this year. And so while I've been here, I've been getting emails and texts. So I finished my Rice audition. I'm on my way to Indiana. So this is the season now for them where they hurry up and wait. So what we have learned over the time that the program has been in existence is that what we want is to have, or what we have come across as a system where instead of having outliers that get into these schools, we have systemized it in a way that it allows all of our students to have the same outcomes, which is to go to last year's graduates. One went to Curtis, one went to Indiana, and one went to Berkeley School of Music. And just giving a student music lessons is not enough. And so what we do is we have a jury and advisory process that is really the key piece of how we are able to meet needs of students and to keep them progressing along on the path and stay focused. They have 2 juries a year. The jury in November, we call it a technical jury, and they have to play a scale, etude, and a solo. That's when they get feedback from a like instrument panel. So either a string panel hears them, a wind panel, brass panel. We do a separate panel for harp and percussion so that they can get really specific feedback from someone who truly understands the components of what has to go into their technical development. The other thing is that in the spring is our spring performance, and it is called a performance jury. It's a recital that's open to the public, and the feedback is on the piece that they play. They are also required to introduce themselves and their piece from the stage, so they get feedback on their stage presence and how they handled that part of the process. And they get feedback on, of course, the both technical and musical aspects of the performance. But then the key part that comes after is the advisory process. Once we have this feedback, it's not something that kind of goes out in a vacuum or even something that is just a mechanism just for the teacher and for the student, but we actually have an advisory process where we sit down with the parents, myself, the faculty person, their teacher, and that's when we really can kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of what's happening and what will need to happen in the future. So it is very interesting what we find out about these juries. And the other thing that I do is I make sure that I hear the students at every step of the process. I hear them when they apply for the program, when they come in for their audition. I hear them at the callback audition. I hear them at the fall performance. I hear them at their jury. I hear them when they come in for dress rehearsals for that fall performance, dress rehearsals for the spring performance. I hear them at the recital. If they have other performances through the year, I hear them also. So I am not working in the advisory process as someone who is working from the feedback that I've read from a piece of paper. What I'm actually working from is having an intimate knowledge of how they sounded the last time I heard them, and do I hear any progress? So the teacher hears them every week. I hear them 4 to 5 times a year, and so therefore I have an intimate knowledge of how the student is doing, and so I am therefore able to be part of that team process of looking at what the student is doing. There are very interesting things that we find out at these advisories that it takes all of us in order to do that. So I've shared this experience with some already, but we had a new student, violinist, 10th grader, new to the program, has made has never had lessons before. And if you would just kind of look at her progress, you would say, wow, she is co-concert master of a youth symphony she auditioned to. She made 12th chair in All-State. But the question I asked her at the advisory is, tell me how much you are practicing. And she said, I'm practicing 3 days out of 5. So my face looked, well, I don't. It's like, and she's proud of this. And I'm looking at her like she has 2 heads. But the thing is that because she was making that kind of progress, her teacher was perfectly satisfied with her preparation for lessons. And it's like he had never asked that question. And so, therefore, when he found out that was what she was doing, it was like he's shocked himself. And it's like, can you imagine if you have made this kind of progress, practicing 3 days a week, what would happen if you doubled your practice? What would happen if you were practicing 7 days? So anyway, she had to start sending me practice records to document when she was practicing, how long she was practicing, what she was practicing. The teacher, all of a sudden, I got feedback from him. Her preparation for the lesson is different. You know, his expectations have now changed. And so therefore, we have somebody that should be more focused. And it's like, you know, a 10th grader, you do not have any time to waste. And so you need to get on the case right now. So, and it can be different for different students. We had a student, one of the students that you saw, what his problem was is that he had this like kind of perfectionist streak in him where he would be so hard on himself. The very first recital that he played when I was running the program, afterwards when I went to shake everybody's hand, he had been holding his head in his hand like this. And when I went to shake his hand, he was crying because he thought that he had not done well at the recital. And so over the course of these years, what we have been trying to do with him is to make sure that he is not so hard on himself. His practicing was perfect, and he won the Young Arts competition, and he was one of the students that was featured in the recital that they broadcast from Miami during Arts Week. That his practicing wasn't the problem, but by knowing the students and what they need, then we are able to help them with whatever they need. And the other thing that was outstanding about this student is that this summer he went to BUTI Tanglewood just for the Tuba Institute. He came home and worked at Waffle House the rest of the summer, even though we would have paid for camp for the whole summer, because he needed to buy a tuba. And he does have that tuba now. Once he got to $4,000, then there was an angel donor that came in and paid for the rest of it.
Adrian, I'm so sorry, but we need to move on.
Okay, and so I just wanted to say that our students come to us, they are not prodigies. A lot of times they are behind, and the only thing that we're looking for is people that like to practice. And once we find someone that likes to practice, then we can do the rest of it. And so I ask you in your communities to look for kids that like to practice and get them to the best teacher that you can.
Good afternoon. My name is Francisco Vila, and I am here to present the project that I started 3 years ago. It's called Festival Esmeraldas, and it will soon become the Esmeraldas organization as it grows into being a multidisciplinary festival or encounter of sorts, where it won't only be music, master classes for strings and piano, but it will also include film, art, and other disciplines, hopefully literature as well. That's a 5-year sort of long-term goal. But I will let you know just that, we started this project 3 years ago in order to give young artists from South America, mainly from South America, but it's open to people from all over the world, the opportunities which I feel I had and many of us in this room have had growing up in the United States, of course. Having a teacher, being exposed to performances by great artists, especially people who live in or have grown up in New York and Boston, places like this, know that of course it can make the difference is huge if you have exposure to symphony hall once a week or to great chamber music. In Ecuador and in many of the neighboring countries, there just aren't those opportunities. So what I decided to do, along with other colleagues, is to provide those opportunities for these very talented young artists who participate in our program each year. Over the course of these 3 years, we have had, let's say, 110 or so students who have been fully sponsored to go participate in our master classes with major people. So this past 3 months ago, we had members of the Juilliard String Quartet come this year. The great cellist Gary Hoffman will be there to give master classes. The principal oboist of the Berlin Philharmonic was one of our guests 2 years ago. And so the hope is that through the next years, we can invite more and more of these top artists to make contact with young musicians from all of these different countries in South America. In this past edition, we had 11 countries represented in a body of 35 young artists. It was a fantastic experience for me to see that actually the level is quite high. The level of playing is high. They only need opportunities to play for great people who will propel them along. Also, being here and learning from what you've done, for example, with your program in the UK, I find that there are a lot of commonalities, you know, there are many similarities in that you are trying to take music to people who probably haven't been exposed to it very much. In Ecuador, we've done something very similar, which is that one of the main missions, besides giving exposure to these young artists to great lessons and chamber music, is that all of the concerts are open and free to the public, but specifically to people from low-income communities. So we've built up an audience base of over 1,500 people per year through the work that we do with partner foundations and nonprofits that work with, let's say, children who work on the streets, single mothers, retirement homes, hospitals, and out of all partnerships with all of these people, we draw in a huge amount of audience members who've probably never witnessed a classical music performance, especially in Ecuador, you know. It's a very emotional event, actually, to see that an entire hall can fill up with people who've never been to a concert before. And that's one of the main missions because, as many of you may know, in countries like Ecuador, the challenge is to have access to high education, to great teachers, to great, you know, just by the mere fact that we're a low-income and developing country, the education level is very low. You don't have many graduates from universities. The middle class is virtually non-existent. You have a very small percentage of extremely wealthy families, and then the lower class is the largest, you know. The same is the case. The case is the same in Mexico and Colombia. Venezuela now is even worse. But so in my belief is that actually through music, which is what I know how to do and what I know how to, the thing I know I can contribute, you know, I want to impact especially children. So we take a group of young artists, or 4 or 5, throughout the 2 weeks that we're there, and we hit all of the schools that are in the immediate community. So that these kids, with just one time of being exposed to music, will store that in their memory. And I think it's very important because that can make the whole difference in the future. You know, to say the next time they see a violin when they're 14 years old, maybe they'll think, maybe I want to play that. Or when they're 8, let's say, hopefully 8 so they can start early. But the festival, how do we get funding for this festival? Well, the first one we did through a Kickstarter campaign. $1 goes an extremely long way in Ecuador. So I think we started with a budget of $19,000. With that amount of money, we were able to bring in 30 young artists on full scholarship. Everybody who goes there goes on full scholarship. They pay their own travel, but we pay the room and board, and of course the artists who are there to teach them. It was 2 weeks, and in this past edition in 2017, which took place in November, with a budget of $40,000, we brought in 11 faculty members, all paid, of course, and their flights, and 35 young artists on full tuition scholarship. Our focus is that they have one-on-one lessons with all of our guest faculty members, chamber music coachings, and then orchestra as well. So it's an intensive period of work. Yeah? My idea has always been that I want to give Ecuador the type of festival that I've been to and many of my friends who are here have been to, like the Ravinia Festival, which I've been to with some of my friends, something comparable to the Marlborough Festival. Why not have something like that in South America, where there's no access to, you know, to that level of music making, really. And I see that little by little we're getting there. We're getting to that goal that I've had in mind, especially in the level of artistry. This past year, I was shocked and so pleased to see that all of the guys who were there and girls came very well prepared. they all can play. All they're lacking is the opportunity. And so by being here, I think I learned so much about what, the work that what you were saying about just equip them with knowledge and preparation so that they know how to present themselves to, right? How to seize the day in the end, right? So our long-term goals, as I said at the beginning, is to convert this platform that we have now, into a multidisciplinary platform, so that we don't only cater to musicians, but other young people with other talents, like in film and dance and literature, and hopefully in 10 years, that it won't only be art-based, but also to involve technology, lecture on economy, or just to make the point also that the arts are an integral part of a healthy society and a well-rounded community of people. So, especially in countries like mine, the challenge is that people do believe that it's an elitist activity. That it's all. In my country, if I tell them I play the cello and I play classical music, they say, "Oh, but that's for," they say, "pelucones," which means big wigs. Very rich people. And I tell them that's not true. So, to defy that argument, we take people to the plazas at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when people are getting out of work. And we'll do a flash mob, or just put a string quartet out in the plaza to play, on the streets, in the shopping malls. I don't care where, as long as you get the shock value, Have them play for people who have probably never stepped into a concert hall, just to prove the point that no, it's not only for the concert hall, and it's not only for the wealthy. And I have video proof that I'm right. People from all classes, there was a security guard, a man dressed in a suit coming out of the bank who works, who's a banker, children in school uniforms. They'll all stop and out of curiosity just listen, because all of the divisions and all of the limitations we place on music, it's us who do it, right?
So thank you so much. But
anyway,
we do
thank you
need to
very
move
much.
on.
Thank you very much for having us, and I hope that you can check out Festival Esmeraldas. Thank you.
It's great to follow Francisco's passion about making music available for everyone. I'm Katie Wyatt. I'm the executive director of El Sistema USA, and I'm really proud to be part of the El Sistema movement. El Sistema USA is a national alliance of El Sistema-inspired programs, and our mission is to support and grow our movement to build Venezuela's El Sistema to effect social change through music for children with the fewest resources and the greatest need. El Sistema is the international phenomenon of music for social change that started in Venezuela in the 1970s and now has expanded to the United States. And the National Alliance of El Sistema-inspired programs is now called El Sistema USA, but is the end result of a grassroots movement of people who were passionate about El Sistema, who locally funded and founded programs all across the United States. The first iteration of El Sistema in the US was with Mark Churchill, the founder, at the New England Conservatory in Boston, and then led truly by Stan Thompson, the founding board chair of the National Alliance for El Sistema-inspired programs. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet him yet, he's here. He's one of the founding board members and our founding board chair of El Sistema USA. Also with us is Mr. Mike Angel, one of the board members of El Sistema USA. And also, thank you. Always, basically everyone is a talent development program alum. Anyone who has done anything is a TDP alum. We have spent the last year, Christine Taylor, who runs Reach, Teach, Play, and a Sistema-inspired program in Ravinia, Chicago, with the Ravinia Festival, was chair of the Membership Engagement Committee of El Sistema USA. And before this work, we really didn't have a definition of what it meant to be a member of El Sistema USA. We now do. If you're interested in joining El Sistema, we would love for you to consider being part of our movement, because if you believe in these values, then you belong to the movement. El Sistema's programs have at their core social change as their mission. There's a level of intensity so that it's not just 3 days of practicing after school, 7 days of practicing. It's about access, it's about making opportunities available, opening doors. It's about ensemble playing, which is often orchestras, bands, and choirs, but is not limited to those three. Also, we are inviting and including all kinds of ensemble learning, but social learning, really based. That there's a nucleo environment, that you're building this program in the community where you're trying to make a difference, that it's not an outside site where you're inviting a community of people to join you someplace else. You're building the nucleo where you're trying to make an impact. Very community-based, so nucleos are often not siloed. They're very often connected to the public school system, to the orchestra system, to a network of social services in the program, so that nothing that El Sistema programs are doing are operating alone. That there's a continuum, and so most El Sistema programs now in the United States are K through 6, although we're learning as the movement grows that Sistema programs are building more and more middle school and high school programs. But in general, they make sure to follow their kids all the way through. They're tracking their alumni. They're making sure that if there is a departure point, that that kid is supported with extensive partnerships and services all the way through. There's tea service. Thank you. So some of the things that we're working on is really building a reason to become part of the El Sistema USA movement. And some of our benefits in your membership include a national symposium. So we're in conversations now with the lead conveners, of course, including SphinxConnect and the Sphinx organization, about how we can nationally support through professional development and gatherings the El Sistema movement. We have a monthly webinar series, and it's free for all of the members. And these webinars span the gamut from teachers, tips and tricks for how Sistema program teachers can be more effective in the classroom, also how to get more money for El Sistema inspired programs, how to build partnerships, how to work more effectively in your local public school system. So this is just a range of activities. Similarly, in quarterly regional workshops and in building awareness online through our resources. We're also interested in making technical grants, small grants, to El Sistema inspired programs in the field. We have 4 regional seminarios this year, which are a seminario in the El Sistema lingo is a gathering of El Sistema inspired programs from kind of all in the same region, and they all bring kids, and then their teachers all come too, and they do some like intensive professional development for part of the day, and then all the kids come together and play, and it is like a big kind of party. It's a big party. It's also a big kick in the pants to like get those kids up to the next level. And then of course those kids go back to their program and now are playing at this higher level and can share that with their peers. So we have 20,000 students enrolled in El Sistema programs across the United States. We have 70 members that are now members of El Sistema USA. There is very little barrier to membership. It is $350 a year to join if your organization is $200,000 or less. It's $500 or more if it's $500 for a budget of $200,000 or more. You can see that there's some open space in the United States where we need El Sistema inspired programs. And so if you are interested and want to work with me to begin a program in some of those areas, I'd love to work with you. I am from North Carolina. I'm a military kid, but now I say I'm from North Carolina, and I'm really interested in working in more rural communities. And so if you have an interest in helping parts of rural America build Sistema-inspired programs, I'd love to talk to you about it. This is a little bit about El Sistema USA at a glance. So most of the organizations that we work with, the operating budget, the average is about $286,000. The cost per child per year is $1,600, and that is including an instrument, usually 8 to 10 hours a week of after-school instruction, and all of the concerts and performances that come with being part of an El Sistema-inspired program. That's amazing. I don't know if you know much about after-school care in general, or if you're a parent, just know intuitively what you're paying for your kids to be part of a daily after-school program. It's closer to $7,000 to $10,000 per year per kid for that kind of care and for that kind of impact. So we're very cost-effective and making a big difference in the lives of these young musicians. So some of the things that we really want to accomplish in the next 3 years, top of mind for us is keeping the main thing, which is that if we're not affecting social change through music, then what are we doing? We want to know who we are, so we want to make sure that we're able to share data about the impact of El Sistema nationally through knowing what everybody's doing locally. So are there things that everyone is similarly excelling in? Can we tell a national story about the impact that we're having on the school dropout rate? Can we tell a national story about how we're encouraging kids to stay all the way through high school and to keep music as part of their lives all the way through up until college? What can we tell at the national level? We also want to make our field better, so through professional development and adding new performance opportunities, really push the Sistema field and provide capacity development for all of our Sistema members. We want to raise awareness about El Sistema and the El Sistema movement, both for the national movement and to make sure that our program members are top of mind for all of the funders, public school partners, orchestras, etc., in their own communities. Now, things are really beginning to change, but certainly at the beginning of our work, we were still describing what El Sistema is to the Cleveland Orchestra, which is crazy, you know? So it's now, that has really changed as El Sistema USA has grown. We're trying to help our members be sustainable, so making sure that they have effective teachers, effective processes in place so that they don't have to worry about surviving at the end of the year. And as we have enrolled these 20,000 kids, they don't get to 2 years from now and have to let a bunch of kids go because their organizations are not going to survive. We're also, through doing that, we're trying to help them raise more money. So we're trying to help them make connections, have national conversations with funders so that we can then, if funders are interested in pursuing music for social change activities, make sure that they know about the impact that El Sistema programs are having nationwide. And we want to join the fight. So it's crucial to us, and one of our audience members, I think, said it just a few minutes ago, making sure that public music education is still top of mind for all of our policymakers, for all of our community builders, for anyone who is acting in a position of influence, that a high-level instrumental educational program is crucial for every child's learning in the United States. Oh, sorry, am I making a lot of noise? Sorry. This is how you can get involved. We'd love for you to consider becoming a member of El Sistema USA. We also have a very active committee structure, so if you're interested in getting more involved in any of our committees of the board, we're always looking for people who are passionate about the El Sistema movement, but haven't quite yet found a way as to how to get involved. Joining a committee is a great place. This summer, we're nominating new members of our board of directors, so please consider nominating someone you know or yourself for our board. It's an exciting time to be part of El Sistema USA. Lots of decisions to be made, a lot of opportunities to plan for the future. And join an affiliate group. So we'll be, this is an old slide from we just had our national conference 2 weeks ago, but the new affiliation groups that we're forming are teachers, administrators, regional affiliation groups, and then also kids. That was the cool thing that came out of our conference, was that kids wanted to be able to talk to one another in the El Sistema programs across the country. So the most exciting initiative that we're kicking off next through our partnership with Duke University is the Program for Rising El Sistema Inspired Organizations, which is thanks to the Paul M. Angel Family Foundation. We will be convening a cohort of grantees over the next 3 years, supporting in an incubation hub through funding and training programs that have gotten started but have not yet hit that 5-year mark. So programs that are new, led by innovative leaders, people who are passionate about what they're doing, have a lot of promise, and then can be brought together as a cohort to learn from one another. We'll be providing matching grants, but with those matching grants comes training so that we can help you be successful making the match and then be making sure that your organization is sustainable over time.
Katie, thank you so much,
Thank
but we're
you.
actually out of time. The closing plenary is starting very, very soon, so if you can all just start moving in that direction, thank you so much.